Welcome back. Everybody knows that eating bad foods leads to health problems, yet somehow people in our community still often eat the wrong things. Here to help us understand why that happens is Majora Carter, who's president of the Majora Carter Group, an economic consultant firm. We're also joined by Farnell, who is a health and wellness expert, and Dr. Aletha Maybank, who is assistant commissioner of the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Dr. Maybank, I'm going to start with you first. Question, why does this happen? I mean, if everybody knows that eating too much fried chicken, drinking too much of the wrong things, eating sugary foods, if we know that this stuff is bad for us, why do we do it?
A lot of reasons, multiple reasons. So one, we have to look at what people have access to in their communities, right? So we have to look at, do they have access to fruits and vegetables? And we do know, and there's plenty of evidence, and a lot of us on this panel already know, that some of our communities, and our communities in particular, the African American community, we have a lack of access, especially in the urban, underserved, low-income communities. So that's one reason. Two, also in these communities, lack of access to fruits and vegetables, but an increased access and really an overabundance of unhealthy junk food. So it makes it harder to choose the healthier choice if the healthier choice isn't there and you have all these unhealthy foods. I think also we have to talk about the impact of marketing. Our communities, and we have the evidence behind this or the data behind this with Nielsen, we know our children are especially targeted more so than white children in this country as it regards to marketing and commercials. And I think lastly, we have to talk about kind of social norms and what we're used to. You know,
like our culture.
Absolutely, our culture, right? And so that's and our culture strongly influences our social norms. So, you know, my family's from the Caribbean. We had, what do you call it? I just had them this weekend. Patties and sorrel and all these drinks with all these sugary substances and fatty foods. And that's what we're used to. We like that. That's a social norm. It's a social norm to go to somebody's house and offer them a sugary drink. So there are multiple factors, but those are the main.
Let's talk about some of those factors. And Majora, when we talk about the environmental factors, sort of the idea that in people's neighborhoods, they don't have access to fresh fruit and vegetables. You can go in some neighborhoods, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, where I live, and you'll see 4 or 5 miles of space between a person and a fresh vegetable. What do you do with that?
No, I mean, well, you first acknowledge that it's happening, and I consider, when I think of the environment, it is large, so it does include lack of access to healthy fruits and vegetables as well. And so when you're in a community where it is really difficult to find that stuff, but it's real easy to find fast food joints, and that's what you eat, and that's what you know, because it can also be cheaper because of the food policies, within this country, where junk food is actually cheaper than healthy produce. It is what people eat. I live in the South Bronx, but most of my produce, I get on the subway and I go downtown because it's cheaper and better quality. And then I bring it back up in my little canvas bags, up on the subway. If people aren't feeling as though they deserve that, are they going to go out of their way, to experience that for themselves? I'm
glad you mentioned the deserving part, because there's a psychological dimension. There's a cultural dimension to this. Andre, you work with people every day who come to you to be healthier, to be more well. How much of the choice to eat bad food is about what's in here?
I would say that 90% of what you choose to put into your body has to do with how good do you feel about yourself. That would make you screen and think about how good the food is and the quality of the food is that you put into your body.
So if I feel bad about myself, it's easier for me to pick up a bag of pork rinds than to eat a bag of oranges.
I think that's a conversation that we don't have as much really nowadays. We talk a lot about the obesity epidemic. It's everywhere in the news. Most people you talk to know about the obesity epidemic, but I think there's a strong relationship between the two.
What role does culture play in this? Because I come from a house and a tradition where you eat fried chicken, you eat, all kinds of stuff that's dipped in butter and lard and it's fried. I mean, just a tradition of eating bad stuff. Right. Some of this is our culture. How can we hold on to our culture but still develop good eating habits?
There's different ways that you can prepare it. Once again, that takes a level of awareness that you got to have right there. Okay, I want fried chicken. So instead of choosing, all right, let's get the lard and let's do it the old-fashioned way, say, no, I'm not going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to use coconut oil or a different type of oil to fry this chicken, and it's going to be a lot lighter. Maybe I'll bake it instead. So you can get the same taste and flavors, and I think that's what a lot of people think, is that once you go healthy, you go flavorless, you go no seasoning.
And you lose your culture.
And people aren't going to buy that, but there's a million black people watching the show right now who are like, I like being healthy, but not enough to lose my fried chicken.
And I don't think we have to lose our fried chicken. I think we have to figure out different ways to create our fried chicken.
And we can also do things like adding salads.
I hear that,
Like,
but the reality is
Right.
that our communities, and this is what we know, and this is really why the reason for the portion control. So then there's the 200 and 300 calories that we consume more than we did 20 to 30 years
Right.
ago. Half of them are sugary drinks. And people aren't really familiar with when they drink sugary drinks, they don't really get full.
We need some concrete examples here. If I'm not supposed to drink the 16-ounce sugary drink, what am I supposed to do?
I'm going to take a different stance. I
Sure.
don't think that the problem is the sugary drinks. I think that the problem is the personal responsibility for drinking the sugary drinks.
New York has cracked down on the size of beverages that people can consume. And at first I said, I don't need the government telling me how big my big gulp is supposed to be. But what's the government doing this time? What are
So
they
the
doing?
government this time, we're limiting the 16 ounce or limiting the size that food service establishments can offer to 16 ounces. And if it is a self-serve place, they cannot give cups that are greater than 16 ounces, and that's for sugary drinks. There are certain exemptions, such as fruit juices, if there are 70% more fruit juice, and also things with dairy product.
What do we do about the entrepreneurs who are making their businesses off of black food? How can we get them to respond not just to our cultural needs, but our health needs?
Well, I think that takes education on several levels, right? It takes education from our communities, right, to know that they have the power to actually create a certain level of demand. But I think we have to have a certain amount of courage as leaders in our community.
And it is hard to do that, clearly. But the bottom line is when you do, I mean, because the results of it and the goals, what are we going to have? We're going to have, Black and brown people actually being healthier than they've been in a really long time, being able to live longer and do great things that I think in many cases have absolutely held us down. So whether it's developing different ways of online grocery stores, community markets, farmers markets, developing new entrepreneurs who are trying to build a healthy way, I think these are all opportunities that we have not been giving ourselves reason to believe that we deserve and can do.
We'll be right back. Promotional consideration provided by